Picture this. You're standing in the checkout line at the grocery store, and the total comes up higher than you expected. Again, not because you bought anything different, just everything costs more now. Or maybe it's your phone, the one you've had for 3 years, finally died, and when you go to replace it, the price tag makes you do a double take. Then you hear people online blaming inflation. Like it's one mysterious blob nobody can explain. Or worse, they just tell you, spend less. But here's the thing. A huge piece of what's driving prices up right now isn't some vague economic mystery. It's tariffs. And once you understand how they actually work, you'll start noticing them everywhere. And more importantly, you'll know exactly what to do about it. My name is John. If you're someone who feels like your paycheck just doesn't stretch as far as it used to, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out.
All right, let's start with what's actually happening right now, because despite all the noise online, the basic mechanic is simple. A tariff is a tax the U.S. government places on goods coming in from other countries. The company importing that product pays the tax, and almost every time, that company doesn't just quietly absorb the cost. They pass it straight on to you, the customer, in the form of a higher price tag. Right now, the average tariff rate in the U.S. sits somewhere between 10 and 13%, the highest it's been since the 1940s. Earlier this year, the Supreme Court actually struck down a big chunk of these tariffs in a close ruling, saying the law used to impose them didn't actually give that authority. Now, here's what most people don't realize. That ruling didn't kill tariffs, it just narrowed them. Tariffs on steel, aluminum, semiconductors, cars, and copper stayed exactly in place. And almost immediately after the ruling, a new tariff was placed on goods from nearly every country under a different law. So practically speaking, prices kept climbing anyway. Now, let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets really interesting. Researchers estimate these tariffs are costing the average American household somewhere between $700 and $1,500 a year, depending on the year and the method used. That's not a one-time fee. That's money quietly leaving your budget every single year without a single line item ever saying the word tariff. And it's not just a theory. Economists at the Federal Reserve tracked this directly. They found tariffs pushed core goods prices up by roughly 3% so far this year. And that increase accounts for basically all of the extra inflation we've seen in goods compared to before the pandemic. In plain English, this isn't background noise. Tariffs are the main reason a lot of everyday products cost more right now. So which categories are getting hit hardest? Analysts expect durable goods, electronics, tools, small appliances, toys, to rise around 4.5% this year. Everyday non-durables, things like clothing, food, and paper products, are expected to climb even more, closer to 5.6%. And it's not abstract. Canned vegetables and canned fruit got pricier because tariffs on steel and aluminum made the cans themselves more expensive to produce. Beef prices climbed too, partly from supply constraints running into steady demand. Let's make this concrete. Say your weekly grocery run used to cost $120. A 5.6% increase doesn't sound dramatic on its own, but it works out to roughly $35 extra every month just on groceries. Now add electronics. That laptop you've been eyeing at $1,000 could carry close to $45 in added cost once that durable goods bump gets baked into the price tag. None of these numbers feel huge by themselves. That's exactly the trap. You might be thinking, okay, but isn't some of this temporary? Good question. Some tariffs are actually scheduled to expire around the middle of this year. If Congress doesn't extend them, the average tariff rate could drop from that 10 to 13% range down to somewhere around 6 to 9%. That would help. But here's the catch. Nobody knows for sure if that expiration will actually stick. And the tariffs on steel, aluminum, cars, and semiconductors don't have an expiration date at all. Let me give you a simple analogy. Think of a tariff like a toll booth on a highway that every delivery truck has to pass through before reaching the store. The trucking company doesn't eat that toll. They build it into the delivery cost. The store doesn't eat it either. They build it into the shelf price. By the time that product reaches your cart, the toll has technically been paid by everyone in the chain, except it all eventually lands on you. Right now, the data shows that pass-through from tariffs to actual store prices is close to complete, meaning almost the entire cost of the toll ends up in your total. Here's the psychological magical part most people miss. Because tariffs raise prices gradually, a few percent here, a few percent there, your brain doesn't register it as one event. It registers it as a string of small annoyances. Gas felt a little high, groceries felt a little high, that phone case felt overpriced for what it is. Each one gets dismissed individually, but add them up over a year, and you're looking at hundreds, sometimes over $1,000 in spending that quietly shifted without you ever making a single bad decision. That's not a spending problem. That's a structural one. And structural problems need a structural fix, not just willpower. So now that you understand why prices are climbing, let's talk about the fix, because there are real practical moves you can make starting this week.
First, shift towards store brands, especially on packaged and canned goods. The price gap between store brand and name brand has widened, and most of the quality difference is smaller than people assume. Second, time your big purchases. If you're planning to buy electronics, a car, or major appliances, pay attention to that mid-year tariff expiration window. If rates actually drop, prices on some imported goods could ease slightly in the months after. Third, consider buying used for anything heavily exposed to tariffs, like electronics and cars. A refurbished phone or a used car sidesteps a big chunk of that new import cost entirely. Fourth, build a small buffer into your budget now, instead of reacting later. If you're using something like the 50-30-20 rule, treat rising grocery and goods prices as part of your needs category and adjust your wants slightly to compensate, instead of letting your savings rate quietly shrink without noticing. And fifth, avoid panic buying. When people rush to stock up before expected price hikes, demand spikes, and that alone can push prices up even faster in the short term. Here's the bigger takeaway. Tariffs aren't just a political headline you scroll past. They're a quiet tax that shows up in your grocery total, your electronics bill, and your car payment, whether anyone tells you directly or not. And the people who notice this pattern early are the ones who adjust their budget calmly, instead of getting blindsided every time they check out. So if you found this breakdown helpful, make sure to hit subscribe. And I'm curious, which category have you actually noticed getting more expensive lately? Groceries, electronics, something else? Let me know in the comments, because understanding where your money is actually going is always the first step to keeping more of it. If you want to keep building this kind of financial awareness, check out a few more videos on this channel, because the more you understand how these hidden costs work, the harder it becomes for them to ever catch you off guard.